Hello, in today's video I'll be talking about how to solve quadratic equations by factoring. And we'll start off with a very simple equation. So, let's say we have x squared minus 25 equals 0. And you can notice that 25 is a perfect square. So, perfect squares are numbers that can be rewritten in the form a squared. So notice that 25 is equal to 5 squared, so it's a perfect square. And to factor these, you have to make sure that the constant term at the end is a negative. So here. And this wouldn't work if it was a positive. Because then you'd have a negative square root and you can't get real solutions on that. So to factor these, it's very simple. Just take the square root of 25, which is equal to 5, and then you make two brackets here. So on both of them put an x, and then one of them you have to put a minus 5, and one of them you have to put a plus 5. And all of this is equal to 0. And this means that when either of these are equal to 0, this solution will be, this equality will hold. So that means x minus 5 is equal to 0, and x plus 5 is equal to 0. So solving both of these, we get x equals 5 and x equals negative 5, and those are two solutions to this equation. So for our next example, suppose we have x squared plus 8x plus 16 is equal to 0. So how do we factor this? Well, notice there's 16 here at the end. So what we need to do is find the factors of 16. So what are the factors of 16? Well, there's obviously 1. 16 is even, so there's 2. 4 is a factor. There's 8 and there's 16, and those are the factors. So what we need to do to factor this equation is find a number. We'll find two numbers which add up to 8, and they also multiply to 16. So it's pretty easy to see that the only two numbers out of these ones where they add up to 8 and multiply to 16 are 4 and 4, because 4 plus 4 is equal to 8, and 4 times 4 is equal to 16. So over here in our equation, what we could do is split up this middle term here. So x squared plus 4x plus 4x. And notice that we split them up based on the two numbers we chose here. So in our case, both of them were the same, so which is why we split it up into 4 and 4. And then the plus 16 equal to 0. So what we could do is add brackets here. So what we get is x squared plus 4x plus 4x plus 16 equals 0. So in the first term, we could notice that there's we could factor out an x, so we get x out of the brackets, and then we have x plus 4. And over here, we notice that we could factor out a 4, so we get plus 4x plus 4 equals 0. So one way to know that you're doing this right is after you took out everything and reduced it as much as you can, both of these terms here should be the same. So if they're the same, you know you're on the right track. So over here, notice both of them have x plus 4, which means we could once again factor out an x plus 4 from this, and we're left with x plus 4 on the outside that we just factored out, and then these two terms here and here, so x plus 4. So both of them are x plus 4, so x plus 4 squared is equal to 0. So the only possible solution to this is x equals negative 4, and that is how you factor this quadratic. In this last example, I'm going to show you a slightly different case where you have to do a little bit more work to factor this quadratic. So suppose you have 2x squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. So what's different about this question is you could notice there's a 2 at the beginning instead of 1. So what we can't do the same method as before. We find two numbers which add up to 5 and multiply to 2 because none exist. No integer solutions at least. So what we need to do is notice the 2 at the front and then here what we call the c value, and this is the a value. So we need to multiply them together to get a times c, which is equal to 2 times 2, which is just 4. So this is the number we must find that multiplies 2. So we need two numbers now that add up to 5 and then multiply to 4. So it's pretty easy to see that a solution to this would just be 4 and 1, because 4 plus 1 is equal to 5, and then 4 times 1 is just equal to 4. So let's do what we did again and split up the middle component. So 2x squared plus 4x plus 1x plus 2. So over here we can notice, equals 0, don't forget that, and just like before, add brackets. So we're left with 2x squared plus 4x plus x plus 2 equals 0. So notice in the first term we can factor out a 2x, so we're left with 2x here, and then this just becomes x, and then this one becomes 2, and over here we can't really factor out anything, so we're left with just x plus 2 equals 0. So notice both of these are the same as I mentioned earlier. That's a sign that you're on the right track. And one thing to note is there's an invisible 1 here you can't see. Typically we don't write it. So over here we could just factor out a x plus 2. X plus 2 here. And then in brackets, what we're left with is just here, and then the 1 here. So 2x plus 1 is equal to 0. So that's the equation factors. So we just need to find x plus 2 equals 0, and then 2x plus 1 equals 0. So x equals negative 2, or x is equal to negative 1/2. And that is the equation solved. So thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, please like and subscribe, as it'll give me motivation to continue making videos. And yeah, that's basically it.